Welcome back, everybody. This Janice Luke and April Capri. April,
Hey, Janice.
hey, and we're the Abundant Street podcast, by the way.
Abundant Street Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for just watching and just being here. We love y'all. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely, yes, me too. It's been a quiet the week, kind of
It's
life
been
be
it's been
life.
quite the year.
It has, yeah. But I do know that we have a very interesting guest for you all tonight, so you want to stay tuned and learn about this gentleman. So go ahead, April. Who do we have tonight?
We do. We're blessed to have knowledge from a veteran in the game. We have someone who has been hailed by the Philadelphia Inquirer as America's leading classical guitarist. Can't make this up. So he's renowned globally for his fiery performances and has enthralled audiences worldwide. His artistry, praised by critics and luminaries alike, spans over decades and is marked by sold out concerts for dignitaries and a legacy of enriching classical guitar repertoire. Ooh, sounds fancy. I never even knew classical guitar was a thing, but I'm gonna say less. Let's applaud this musical luminary, Jonathan Taylor. We have Jonathan
All
Taylor
right,
with us.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yes, I'm excited to learn what
He's an
classical
awesome.
guitar is.
All right. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi,
Hi.
Hi,
how are
Jonathan.
you?
Very good. How you guys doing?
Good. We're glad to have you on the Abundant Street podcast.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
I'm
much for
glad to be
coming.
here.
Yeah.
I'm
Super
glad to
happy to
be
have you.
I'm glad to be here in Palm Springs, California, talking to you
Awesome.
two who are in two disparate locations.
So we're all in different time zones. I love God bless the internet. I love it.
Right.
Yeah, oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. No, it's and who predicted it, right? Nobody really predicted it.
Not really,
I can tell
no.
you a story in 95 when it came about that I had a buddy who was a broker, portfolio, stockbroker guy, and came over to his house and he said, "Hey, Jonathan, I've got a computer." I go, "Okay," and he goes, "Oh, I'm on the internet." And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, it's a bunch of computers that talk to each other." He goes, I can talk to somebody in Texas," and I go, "Why don't you just call them on the phone?"
Right.
And he goes, "No, the computers talk to each other." I go, "Why? Why don't you call them?" I mean, I totally did not get it. I
Nobody
Wow.
totally did.
did
No,
at
yeah.
first.
I said, "Well, why do you
Nobody
need to
did.
do that?" You know,
Exactly. Yeah,
but look what
exactly.
happened.
Interesting. And now we're talking
You're
about
taking me
AI
back.
and everything else, right?
Well, AI, I go, it's the greatest upside and the greatest downside you could have.
Yeah. That's
Medical,
awesome.
I'll tell you a couple stories about that. Maybe you need to say something before I get into this stuff.
Oh, no, I was
But
going to say, tell us about your journey wherever you want to start. So it's all you.
okay, but I'll tell you, just speaking about AI, I go a couple things. I go, well, it's the only thing that scared the hell out of Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking. And I go, they're pretty bright gentlemen.
I would
And I
agree.
go, they have a little bit of sense. And so uh, I remember talking to one friend who's in the AI stuff, and he said, "Oh, everybody in their body has literally hundreds, maybe thousands of proteins, and to map a protein takes 5 years for a person to do it. And they got an AI; it was 10 minutes."
Oh,
And they
wow.
map the entire protein. Now, why is that important in medicine? I go, well, it means that you can now create a chemical or you can trace its DNA to stop the function. Let's say it's MS, multiple sclerosis. You can stop the order to degenerate, or you can make a chemical that's going to react with that protein and improve conditions. And I go, it's a miracle. And I go, how long would it take? I would have taken 100 years to map those things.
Wow.
I go, would have taken
Wow.
100 more even. And then I go, so there's the upside in the medical thing. And I go, the downside, I saw this robot video, and the technicians are putting AI into the humanoid looking robots and trying to teach them household tasks, right? They think 40% of the jobs will be taken over by robots. And what is that? And I go, well, open a can, sweep the floor, you know, do the bed, you know, all those things. So they're teaching, they're putting AI into the robots, teaching and you see there's like 5 humanoid looking robots. And there's technicians with their lab coats and their pencils behind their ears and their clipboards. And, you know, and one robot is looking at it and he's halfway through the can. He's kind of getting it. And another one, you know, he doesn't know what to do. And so they're doing this. And all of a sudden, you see one of the robots and he picks up a can and he throws it into the chest of the technician.
Oh
Now,
no.
now people say, was he thinking? I go, I don't care if he was thinking or not. That's the threat.
Oh wow.
That's
Whatever you can interpret, oh, they don't think, they do think. I go, well, that doesn't mean anything. It's like the CIA. Are they capable of doing some damage? And I go, well, that proves it right there. And
Wow.
now, if that technician would have had, let's say it was harder on his chest, it would have killed him, right? It would have crushed the breastbone and stopped his heart. And I go, fortunately, the guy was okay. He was just, you know, a little shook, a little bruised in that. But there's AI, right? There's the upside and the downside.
it's
Mm-hmm.
And I go, it's a
crazy.
double-edged sword. It's a
What's
double-edged sword.
Yeah,
It's
it
definitely
is.
here now, and you're absolutely right. But speaking of
Oh,
things that progress do a lot in a short amount of time,
it's
how
amazing.
it is amazing. But so you're a classical guitarist, and how did you even? Because I never knew classical guitar was a thing. You know, you see classical music in the symphony, you don't see a guitar up there. So how did you
Sure.
even get
Sure.
into that?
Well, really, when I was a boy, I would, about 4 or 5 years old, I'd pick out notes. My grandmother was a um, silent film organist. And
A
that means
silent
she played,
film. Okay.
yeah. So she played for all those people that you know about from that era, like Charlie Chaplin, the Keystone Cops, Harry Houdini. She worked many times with Harry Houdini, the great magician. He was always up in the Pacific Northwest,
Oh
and
wow.
that's where she worked a lot. And then, so she'd be playing around the house. So I'm sure I picked up some of that music from her. But then later on, as a, uh, let's say 13, 15-year old, I saw Segovia, Andre Segovia, the great classical guitarist, at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, Los Angeles Music Center. And I couldn't believe that they could do that. He could, not only was the music beautiful, but the technical prowess to be able to do 2 3 things at one time, not just like playing a chord or playing a note, you know, a melody note. I go, it was everything at once, and solo, without accompaniment, without a group, right? So that really is what, and was polyphonic, meaning many voiced, right?
How old were
So,
you?
well, when I saw him, I was probably about 16. I've been listening to his
Okay.
recordings earlier, though. I've been listening to his recordings, but I really started getting serious when I was 10. I know that sounds weird.
No, it
Uh,
doesn't.
Oh.
yeah, but I just loved it. And people say, why the guitar? And I go, I don't know. That's what I loved. I could have been the piano, could have been, you know, the oboe. I mean, who knows, right? But I go,
Right,
why is one person attracted to this and another person attracted to that, right?
It spoke to you.
Yeah.
right.
How
That's
did you make
awesome.
it work for you?
Say it again, honey.
How did you make that work for you? Like over time, like how did you like what was your first gig or did you even
Well,
want to do a gig or
I sought out guitarists, and when I was very young, I was about 16, not very young, but when I was 16, I sought out a great American guitarist named Christopher Parkening, a great classical guitarist, one of the greatest guitarists in the world. And I called, I for somehow, and I still cannot remember how, I got his phone number, which is a big deal. It's like getting the phone number of Drake or Ariana Grande. I mean, like, you know, Michael Jackson. Oh,
Wow.
but I know the Jackson family. So the terrible tragedy with Michael Jackson, just
Hmm.
heartbreaking,
Yeah, it is.
heartbreaking tragedy, in my opinion. Heartbreaking. I
Hmm.
go, oh my God, all the man wanted to do is get some goddamn sleep. He had sleep problems all his freaking life, you know? Uh, and he had vitiligo problems and that. And I go, God, it's just a tragedy. But so back to, I found that I wanted to be excellent at something. I didn't want to be like a pop thing, not to degrade or to,
One hit wonder.
speak ill of other people, or to in the pejorative, but that I wanted to have excellence. I wanted to have, be the highest competence in that. Whether it be, and you could say that about being an engineer, or being lots of different things, right? A doctor. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I
Yes.
saw a video of you on YouTube, and you were talking about your guitar, and you said that you used the same guitar for 40 years.
That's
You played the
correct.
same.
That is
Wow.
correct.
So to this day, you haven't gotten the new guitar.
The
You still.
laptop is sitting on my guitar case.
Oh,
That's
really?
crazy. What's your guitar's name?
The guitar is made by a luthier, a guitar maker named Antonio Marin Montero, and that was made in 1978 or 9. And at that time, I purchased it for $3,000. That's a story in itself. It's worth about 12,000 now. And but the reason I was able to do that, I studied with the great Pepe Romero for 5 years at his home. That's a great classical guitarist of the Romeros. Maybe you don't know these people, but prominent in the classical world. And I had 100-year-old Ramirez. I had a lesson at his house down in Del Mar. I live in Orange County, Huntington Beach. I'm out here in Palm Springs now, but I live in Huntington. And so I stopped at a gas station to fill up. I set the guitar down by a phone booth. That's how long ago it was. A phone booth,
I remember
right?
I
phone
remember
booths.
those.
Yeah, a
I'm old enough for
phone
25
that.
booth.
cent.
No cell phones, none of that
Yeah,
stuff.
we're old enough
And
to remember phone booths too. So.
that's right. And I left to the gas pump just for wasn't more than a minute and a half. I came back and the guitar had been run over by a car.
Oh,
And this was a 100-year-old Ramirez. So how did I come to this? I went back to my teacher's house. He talked about selling me this guitar, and I've used it. Guitar has been all over the world. I mean, it's been in Romania, it's been in the Philippines, it's been in the Amazon, it's been in the uh, India, it's been in every damn place you can think of. North Africa, wherever.
wow, that's amazing. And you played at all these places, concerts
Yeah.
and whatnot. That's
So that's my
awesome.
question. What did you end up doing? Like, how do you, like, far as your gigs, like, what do you play for? Like, because I'm gonna
Concert halls.
be
So
concert.
so there's really three or four venues for a classical guitarist or a musician, classical musician, and that is to play concert halls, uh, and to then do recordings, of course, obviously, and to put out recordings. And now everything's streaming. In the old days, it was tapes, CDs, what have you. And so I remember when I first got my tapes into Tower Records and Sam Goody, and my friend, oh boy, you've really made it. You've really made it. And the distribution was a big deal back then. Now it's not that big a deal. It's more about promotion. But so what did I do to um, I studied with notable, important 20th and 21st century artists. I went to college. I went to Chapman College on a presidential scholarship and studied music composition, performance, uh, arranging. And then I contracted with agents or managers. And actually, I have no management right now. I'm looking for management. And I've got a record company. I'm with Warner Brothers and Hit Lab. That's the record company that reps my audio files. And the so I they started sending out materials all over the world to Europe but then I played in very weird places, not just what you would expect, North America and Europe. That would be like the common place to play, right? Most people would think that. But I go, oh no, I played in all sorts of, the Amazon. You were talking about the story down there when
Yeah,
almost
Brazil.
yeah. And but I had, I had many, many adventures in touring. I call it. I have a series with my app. My app is on Google Play, and it's free to download, free. And
Free, my favorite
also
word.
Android is Google Play, and then of course Apple Store. Just type Jonathan Taylor in the Apple Store. You can download the app for free. All sorts of videos. If you want to be a member, it's like $40 a year. It's nothing, but there's tons of free stuff on there. And so I have a series of I have 180 performance videos and I have 32 albums. But what I also have is I have a
32
series
albums?
correct.
32.
And yeah.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
so when you weren't touring, what would you do? You come back home and record.
And record. Yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, even though I did a lot of touring, I go, but I didn't do as much touring as other people. And I said, that's why I have like way more albums than them, because I have the time to do it. A lot of people don't know this. So just to talk about other artists that I go, well, the Beatles were not a performance group. I go, the first couple years. But I go, people think about the Beatles, Shea Stadium, Ed Sullivan, and maybe their final video, Get Back. And I go, oh, they were not a touring group. Like only the first couple years. Were they in Germany at the Cavern? I go, yeah, that was before they were the Beatles. They were the Silver Beatles, or they were something else, right? And I go, yeah. But I mean, when they got their record deal, I go, they were basically a studio group. A lot of people
They
don't
were
think of them
called
that
the
way.
Silver Beatles
Right.
before they were the Beatles.
Pardon me?
They were called the Silver Beatles before they
At one time, yeah. And I think if I remember correct, I hope this is right, that Lennon they loved Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and that's why they went for the insect thing, the Beatles.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all sorts
fact.
of little things that happen in life that, you can flip on a dime and, your life would be changed, right?
Right.
A whole different thing.
So
What if John Lennon hadn't gone home that evening after he was recording late into the night, like midnight or something, whatever time he went back to his apartment house, the Dakota there. And I go, what if he hadn't gone back? What if he stayed over at his buddy's house or, done something,
right. Never
I
know.
go,
Yeah.
what would have happened? Yeah.
You just never know. So I want to know more about this the soup story in the Amazon. What
Sure.
happened
Okay.
there?
Okay, sure. So I'm touring Brazil. This is my second tour of Brazil. I can't remember the first or second tour. And so I'm all over Brazil is a giant country. Many people don't know that. I go, it's as big as America. I go, it's gigantic. So is India. India is gigantic, very big. And I'm down there and I'm doing multiple cities, Rio, Brasilia is the capital, and then Belém now, and many others. But Belém, which is actually a Portuguese word for Bethlehem. And I go, well, it's a city that is on the mouth of the Amazon River. There's these, like, that river goes all the way up to Bolivia. And I go, there are little, junctures, and cities were built on that. In Belém's case, they built an opera house for Enrico Caruso, the great opera singer of the early 20th century. And they wanted to have culture. And anyway, so I'm down there playing. And I'm in Belém, and I'm staying in this high-rise hotel. And you can eat. You can see the vista of the Amazon River as you look out having breakfast, and the ants are crawling all over your food. You can only be so civilized.
Oh,
I go,
wow.
pretty soon nature will overtake. And I go, people say, well, what'd you do? I go, well, you have to eat the ants with food. I go, otherwise you're not going to eat.
Oh,
Wait,
no.
for me, this is like ants on your food negative.
Yeah.
No, it's not for me.
No. Oh,
So,
no.
so anyway, so now I'm going there's a concert that evening, and I'm being introduced to the city to sell the last few tickets for the concert that evening, kind of like an effort. And where I'm being introduced, I'm going, well, there's like a fair, a bazaar, an outdoor, you know, and so there's like 10,000 people, and there's a stage, and Jonathan Taylor's going to be playing, blah blah blah, right? Well, all the big mucky mucks are there. The chief Grand High Habish, the big whoop-de-doo people, the glitterati,
Yeah.
and so the mayor of the city, all these people, and so they're introducing me on the stage, and I'm going, I love Belém and all this, and then as a offering of goodwill, they have a national dish, right? Like a soup. Just like if you're in the Philippines, it's adobo, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
Hungary, it's Hungarian goulash.
Mhm.
I mean, each culture, has a certain food, right? Tacos,
Mhm.
whatever it
Right.
is, right?
Yeah.
So uh, I'm looking at this soup. I'm
Oh no.
standing there and I'm looking at my soup and my survival brain right here. This part of my my soup, my reptile brain,
Yeah.
my medulla oblongata, my survival instinct in danger, Will Robinson, danger. That is, there's something going on in my head, and it's telling me it's the animal part of me is to survive, right? But what other side of you is there? I go, oh, there's the civilized side of you where you're going, they're offering you in front of 10,000 people their national dish as an honor, as an honorarium. And I
Oh
go, do you know
man.
how rude it would be
Oh
to say
Oh
man.
no?
man.
I mean, it's like, your wife is a prostitute. I
Oh
mean, you know what
no.
I'm saying? In other words, it's quite insulting, right?
Yeah.
In other words, you just don't do. I go, you what? You want to cause problems? So uh, one part of me is saying, don't eat that, and the other part of me is saying, if you don't eat that, they'll think you're a jerk and
Yeah.
and many other
Oh
worse
man.
names, right?
Yeah.
So down the hatch, I did my social civilized part of me uh, overcame my survival, and I ate it. Well, I felt fine, and then about 10 hours later, I didn't know who the hell I was.
Oh no.
I mean, I started to hallucinate, and what had I contracted? Cholera.
Mm.
And cholera, of course, you're vomiting and all sorts of bad.
Oh.
So actually, I did the concert that night, and I was fine, except like the last piece. I was starting to get hallucinatory, right?
Oh
I
my
was starting to
God.
hallucinate, and so I went back to my hotel room and signed autographs backstage. It were CD at that time. It's CDs, right?
Mm.
And so go back to the hotel room. Well, I was a bone in those days. I was really thin, too thin, way too thin. People don't know the amount of energy you put out for a concert. Elvis used to black his windows out. I go, you have to. I go, you have no idea the amount of energy your body is putting out. And I go,
Wow.
you have to be in a very quiet. After you put, I would lose 4 pounds every time I played.
Wow.
Think of the lights on you, hot
Mm.
lights,
Right.
hot, hot, you're sweating, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
so I go, well, you're expending energy. So
You
I
never
would
really
go,
think about that because for us
yeah,
viewing it, because you're on stage, you're behind the scenes and stuff. Like for us viewing it, it looks fun. It looks like you're singing and dancing and
and it is,
on the
and it
stage.
is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and it is, but it is hard work.
Oh
Mhm.
You
man,
know,
I never thought
it
about it
is
like
late.
that.
It's labor, right? So your body is putting out energy. So I went back to the hotel, and I was I could feel my heart was doing this, fibrillating, right?
Mhm.
I could tell that it was not in a sinus rhythm, that it was not correct, you know, and
Uh-huh.
but you're out of it. And when I say you're out of it, and
Wow.
I go, you lose the sense of self when you get so sick that I go, you really are way beyond your culture. You're way beyond your training, your background. I go, there's something that you are that is very fundamental. And you kind of get back to that. Fortunately, I survived. I was fine, but it was very
Wow.
close, and it was very
Wow.
harrowing. I
Yeah.
wasn't afraid. I'm not crazy. I don't want to die, but I also know that some of those things are out of your control. I have a
Right.
different view of, you know.
Well,
No,
we're
that's
certainly glad you made it through that. That's
yes, definitely glad
wow.
you made it. But that's a
Yeah.
wisdom I feel like that you develop, and because myself included, like I'm just full transparency. I've never been outside of the country. And so, like you said, like just being used to being in your comfort zone and being used to your water and your food and stuff like that. When you go somewhere
Sure.
else and you introduce something foreign into your body, like I feel like, everybody wants to travel and go to like exotic places, but that's like the realness of what can happen. And like that's
Mhm.
scary.
Totally. And
Right.
and
That's
every
scary.
monkey
Yeah.
has their tree. Every monkey has their own tree.
Mm.
And I'll tell you a couple things that when you're far, you're way south, of the equator. And I go, the sun is it a different angle, or it's hitting the earth at it? The sun is at the same angle, but it's hitting that part of the earth differently. So the colors that you see up here in North America, where we all are, right, in the United States, I go, the colors. I was trying to analyze, why do these colors look so different? And I
Mm.
realized the light was shining in a different way,
That's
and
crazy.
my eye was trying to adapt to what that was.
That's
And
crazy.
so even the colors are slightly different than what you and I normally see living here in America.
Wow.
So it was it's a very unique thing. Met a lot of Amazon, meaning native Amazonia, indigenous people,
Mhm.
and they're little, very small, but perfectly formed. Their
Mhm.
bodies are perfectly formed, not distorted. And I go, you see how human beings can adapt to almost anything. And they're so different than, let's say, us as Americans, right?
Mhm.
I go, we have a certain cultural background. Our cultures may be a little bit different, but they're not radically different, you know? And this is people that I go, God, they're just beautiful. But they're nothing like Westerners.
No,
Nothing
right.
like,
I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
That's amazing
yeah.
that you're
that's
able to
crazy.
experience all that. Yeah.
So you
And
And not threatening. People have these ideas like violent or something. I go, that's not like that.
oh,
You know.
just misconceptions. Just
Yeah.
misconceptions.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've traveled literally for how long? Like if you had to put a
30,
number on it, like 30 years?
yeah, 30 years. Yeah, more than, let me see. He started really doing a lot of touring in the 90s. Did touring in the 80s, but the 90s was like intense
Yeah.
touring. So since, let's say,
Right.
90, what is that, 30 years?
Wow.
It's
Can
awesome.
you talk about any like of like because you've made references to the Jackson family, the Beatles, like some major people in the music
I
industry.
know I have not met the Beatles. I just know about them. I don't want to say that. I know Autumn Jackson, who is the niece of Michael Jackson. We've been out to dinner together with her and her husband, and that. And I've known her for, I don't know, 8 years, 6 years, something. And so, uh, but I mean, and I also know people that work. My buddy Shay, who is a producer of R&B and things like that, and my buddy Shay is knows the Jacksons well and has worked for them.
Well, I guess I was
Oh,
asking, like, my question is that you've been in the game for a while. And so you're in a niche of the music industry, you not like a
Sure.
mainstream version of when people think like go on tour, but you've been like on tour with some of like the greatest people in history, right?
mhm.
Well, I did a gig with Luciano Pavarotti. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a great opera singer. He's dead now.
Oh,
And we were in the Philippines. Now, I wasn't performing with him. We were on the same series together. But I mean, many things, like that. Actually, I met him when he first started touring over here. He had been doing his Italian at the beginning of his career. He's passed away now, and a great opera singer, great opera singer.
I
Wow,
was
that's
And
gonna
so
ask, like, what
amazing.
was your most memorable experience from all of that? Because that's
boy,
not a
that is so
normal.
hard.
Yeah, I
That
bet
is
it
a hard
is.
question. I want to answer you honestly and fully, but I don't even, I have so many things. I've met people, like I met the head of JPL on the way back from touring in Tennessee. It was in Tennessee, and he was in Alabama up in Huntsville, where the space camp is, that has that big mural of Werner von Braun. And I met him on the way back from my tour. I had toured down in the South, and I love the South. But let me speak about the South for a second. It pisses me off that they are so misrepresented. They're the most polite, good-hearted people. I love Southerners. I love them. And I go, that whole stereotypical image, I go, I never met anyone like that. I met people that had courtesy, that had grace, they give you the shirt off their back. They'll invite you to goddamn dinner the first day they meet you. Oh, come down with
Southern
the house, we're gonna have
hospitality.
grits, or something, right? And I go, I go, my God, I go, we Yankees are just like pigs. We're and uncivilized dogs. But my dad I only knew my dad later in life. I didn't meet him until I was in my late 20s. So I didn't grow up with him or know him. But he was from Virginia. So I always tell people, I go, oh, I was just raised as a Yankee. I was just raised as a Yankee. It's not my fault. Right.
Quick
So
question. I wanted to ask you, because we're getting close to the end. I wanted to ask you if you had any advice for like aspiring or just rookie musicians, people that's just starting, because you've made like a very niche classical guitar, not, you know what I mean?
sure. Yeah,
You've made something into a career and you've made it stretch over decades. So just speaking to a musician or a singer
sure,
or somebody that wants to grow their talent into a business, do you have
sure.
anything to say to that person?
Yes, number one, you have to pursue record deals. And even though you may not get paid a lot because streaming, like Spotify, 1 billionth of a cent, for every stream, I go, but your presence and it gets you gigs, and there's many other reasons. I go, you have to pursue record deals, even if you may be on the south side of that deal. And I'm not on the south side of that deal, but I have been. And I go, you have to pursue that. And I go, you have to keep knocking at the doors. You cannot know which inquiry will fall into your lap. You cannot know. I go, you just have to keep charging ahead, keep knocking on the door. I mean, there's no other way but to, and I go, disappointment. I go, just know that one didn't work out. We're going to lead you quicker to the next one, right? So I go, if you don't do that, I go, you won't have a career. Because I was with different managers, I'd had different record deals, all that stuff. Some people get lucky and stay with a record company for 30 years. I have not had that. But now I have my new deal here a year ago. I call it the new deal, is a year ago, with Warner and HitLab. And I go, and I'm one of their 9 artists that they're promoting, the label. And then Warner, of course, is a distributor. And so my advice is to, there's no such thing as giving up. What does it
Right.
mean? What does it have
I
any mean?
love it.
When I think we learn in school very incorrectly. And I say, well, you make the mistake first, then you have people that have the right answers and are the A students in college and in high school. I go, oh, they're the losers in life. And why is that? And I go, because they think, you get the answer. I go, no, you make the mistake and then you get the lesson. It's the
Oh,
mistake first.
right.
So know that
You
if
ain't
you're,
lying.
what's that, honey? What, Donna? What?
You are not lying.
That's
Yeah.
good.
It's the
Yeah.
mistake that equals the lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
teaches a
and then you
lesson.
learn
Yeah,
it. Then how the hell are you going to know if you haven't done that? I go, well, you don't really know. You have to have the experience, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That builds character. And we have about
right.
3 minutes. So if you could
Sure.
like repeat your app and your
So
website.
I have an app. I have an app. It is free. Did I say it was free? Oh, I guess it's
free,
We
free.
like free.
Yeah. Oh,
free.
maybe I forgot to tell you that it was free. I'd forgotten.
Y'all better go
So,
download the app now.
It's on Apple and Google
and
Play.
you just go to Google Play, type in Jonathan Taylor, Jonathan, no space, Jonathan Taylor. And if you have an iPhone, of course, it's going to be in the Apple Store. And when it says store, I go, it doesn't cost anything. It's free. Download it. There's tons of stuff there. And it'll have lots of adventure stories like this, tons of them. I mean,
Awesome.
we could literally have 10 hours and I wouldn't run out of
I
stories.
believe
That's,
it.
I
I
believe
believe
you.
it. You
Yeah.
definitely. But I would like to extend the opportunity, like if you would be willing to, if you would come back and give us a follow up and
I
tell
would
us
love
about
to.
how you're. We would
Yeah.
love to have you.
I want to see both of your pretty faces.
Thank
I
you.
Awesome.
love it.
Thank you. We're
I
so
We
love it.
glad that
And
you
by
definitely.
the
came.
way, I want to say something
Yes,
that
sir.
I said this to them earlier off the air. I admire both of you for what you're doing because you're being entrepreneurial, you're getting out there, you're throwing it on the wall, as they say, throwing stuff on the wall, see what sticks. And that's the only way an entrepreneur can learn. Smart people make mistakes. Stupid people don't venture out and they will lead a narrow, small life. And if you think it's risky to venture out, I go, the biggest risk is not risky because that's
Wow.
where it's at. You've got to risk. And you guys are doing a great thing here, a great service, and a wonderful thing. I admire both of you. And I
Thank
mean
you.
that sincerely. It's not a bunch of BS. I have nothing to gain. Okay. It's wonderful. And, it's hard work to put it together.
Awesome. Well, thank you
God
so
bless you,
much.
sir.
And
Thank
I
you
do
for
You're
want to
welcome.
say to you, Jonathan Taylor, I have listened to some of your pieces, and you are an amazing guitarist. And y'all need to
you are.
download the app and you need to listen to the music. I enjoyed the Wizard of Oz concert on YouTube. He's amazing, y'all. So you need to download his app, look at his page on YouTube, and
Yeah, we'll put the link in the
yeah,
description.
you need to listen to his
Thank
music. It's
you.
great. So thank
All
you
right,
so much
ladies.
for
Till
coming on with
next
us.
time. Till next
Absolutely.
time. It'll be
Thank
very
you.
soon. All right,
Thank you so
darling.
much for coming on with us. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you.